Apps can do a lot of cool things. You could order dinner, gamble on your favorite team, and track your health. You could even get a mortgage. One click and you can be approved. I'm not sure by who or what country they're in. You deserve more from the mortgage industry. At AnyMac Home Mortgage, we believe in the need for live human interaction during a very complex process. The kind of service and guidance which an app simply can't provide. Our customers are more than credit scores and income documents. They're individuals and families who live in and strengthen our communities. Their story is our story, and that story begins in a home. Chris Sawyer is an expert on providing superior customer service and in meeting the mortgage needs of current and future home buyers. With over 18 years of experience in the industry, Chris is able to help customers migrate through the home buying and home financing process by using his wealth of knowledge as a well-qualified mortgage professional. And best of all, Chris is located in Cromwell, Connecticut, where he has helped hundreds of clients in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island make their dreams of home ownership a reality. Visit chrissawyer.any-mac.com. Email him at csawyer@any-mac.com or give him a call, 860-878-8730.
Chris Sawyer, NMLS number 39345, corporate NMLS number 338923, AnyMac Home Mortgage, an equal housing lender, American Neighborhood Mortgage Acceptance Company, LLC, DBA AnyMac Home Mortgage, LoFi Direct, Connecticut First Mortgage Correspondent, License Lender, Broker Number ML 338923, Massachusetts Mortgage Lender and Mortgage Broker License Number MC 338923, Rhode Island License Lender, License Number 201128110L. Call for additional details.
Welcome to Sports Talk with R&J. I am Steve Risser, along here with Justin D'Onofrio. And kickoff to the NFL season is 8 days away. So like we always do every year, the week before the season kicks off, we do our annual season preview. And we'll get going, and we'll start in the NFC East. And I'll begin. And for me, the team I have winning the NFC East has not had a repeat champion since the 2004 Philadelphia Eagles. 20 years. That's crazy. And I think that's going to be the case this year too. I don't think there's going to be a repeat champion this year too. And the team I got winning the NFC East is the Philadelphia Eagles. I know Nick Sirianni. I know they collapsed at the end of the year. I know there's questions with Nick Sirianni, but to me, this team has the best roster in the division, and they have the best quarterback in the division. And I think offensively, with the addition of Jahan Dotson, they still have Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. Even though they lost Jason Kelce, good offensive line, a top 10 quarterback in Jalen Hurts. So I think this team is. I think this. And then on defense, they traded for. They got Brees. They got Hall as a defensive end. They drafted Quinyon Mitchell. So for me, I got the Eagles winning this division at 11-6. I know a lot of people are not huge Sirianni fans, but I think this Eagles team in this division are good enough to win it. That's why I got them going 11-6. Justin, what do you got the Eagles doing this year?
Yeah, I got them finishing first as well at 11-6. Yeah, they opened last year 10-1. It kind of felt like a fluky 10-1. They won a lot of close games, got away with, a couple close ones, and they finished the season off last year 11-6. And, we saw what happened in the playoff game. And, I thought they really fixed their secondaries. You mentioned they got Quinyon Mitchell, they drafted Cooper DeJean, they got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And for Nick Sirianni, you got one chance to kind of put blame on the offensive defensive coordinators. He got, he hired the new offensive coordinator, new defense coordinator, so it's up to him now. They got Paris Campbell to help depth there. I like the Ananias Smith pick from Texas A&M, and Johnny Wilson too, who's a huge target at 6'7", but drops are a problem for him at Florida State. But I think Kelce could be a loss because he was the kind of leader at that center position. But I think the Eagles should win this division this year at 11-6.
Yeah, I think they should. They don't have the best coach, but they definitely have the best roster and arguably the best quarterback. And that's why me and you have the Eagles winning the NFC East. Now, coming in second in the division for me, it's the Dallas Cowboys. It's the Cowboys. And I got them coming second at 10-7. I know there's a lot of talk that this team could miss the playoffs. That very easily could happen. But they still got Dak Prescott, who's a top 10 quarterback in the league. They still got Micah Parsons, who's one of the best edge rushers in the league. And they just gave CeeDee Lamb a big deal. Who's one of the top 5 receivers in the league. Yes, this team struggles against the run on defense. They lost Deron Bland. I get that. And Mike McCarthy is very questionable as a head coach. We all know Jerry Jones is very questionable as a GM. Even though this week he said, I know one can do a better job than me. Come on now. You could name 10 GMs easily that are better than you. You're not terrible. I'll give you that. You and your son are not terrible. You keep the team relevant, but you can name 10 general managers that are better than Jerry Jones. But this Cowboy team, it's the same old story for the Cowboys. I got them winning 10 games. I got them getting to the playoffs, but I got them losing the first round. But they are good enough to finish in second in this division and to get one of the wild cards. I got them going 10-7. Justin, what do you got the Cowboys doing this year?
I got them finishing well, but I got them at 8-9. I think the loss of Dan Quinn in that defense is going to hurt a bit. Zach Martin now is 34. He's been a guy that's kind of been banged up the last couple of years. How many games could he play? And with the Cowboys too, especially last year, and I think you could say this for most years, they're a bully. They will beat up on the bottom feeders in the league, but then when they have a step up of competition, they're going to lose or it's going to be a close game and they'll somehow pull it out. So, Dak, and again, maybe Dak has a huge year again where he is playing for a contract, and he's playing for the money, and is playing for that. And same thing for Micah Parsons. But I think I wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys finish like 10-7 because it feels like the expectations are a little less kind of aren't as high as they usually are for Dallas because they had such a bad offseason. So maybe they could sneak up on some people. But I think this is an okay team. They got a first place schedule this year, which I think they will struggle. And I think the Dallas finishes 8-9 this year.
Now, so you have them going 8-9. We know if 8-9, McCarthy's done. We know McCarthy's done. And I think even when I have it 10-7, I think McCarthy's going to be done too, losing the first round. We know if you have the Cowboys doing, McCarthy will be gone. The big question is does this mean the Cowboys let Dak walk, seeing that they go 8-9?
I think 8-9. I think they probably would because I think those Cowboy fans would have enough of Dak, and I think they're going to want Jerry to make a move, and maybe they try to trade up for one. I don't think Trey Lance is a guy. I know he threw 5 interceptions the other day in the final preseason game, but I think if they miss the playoffs, I think you got to go with a different quarterback, and I think that would be something that Jerry Jones would have to do because Dak's probably what the quarterbacks are making now. Dak's probably going to want 50 to 60 million in that range. I don't think you could pay him that, especially if they do finish 8-9. I think you got to go out and probably either sign somebody, trade for somebody, or draft another quarterback.
Yeah, but here's the thing: even if they get rid of Dak and McCarthy after this year, the biggest problem is still there, and that's Jerry Jones, and that's why. And I always say this: the Cowboys will be relevant as long as Jerry Jones is the GM. But to me, they'll never be a Super Bowl contender, and that's why I got them doing the same thing as they usually do: win 10 games and lose in the first round. You got them missing the playoffs. I don't have them. The one thing is this team will not be playing in the conference championship game in late January. That's the one thing that is certain. We will move on to my Giants, and I have the Giants going 8-9, finishing in third place. I got the Giants going 8-9, finishing in third. I wanted to put this team in the playoffs. I really did because I love the fact that they drafted Malik Neighbors. I love the fact they traded for Brian Burns. I like I did like the fact they did move on from Saquon because I think they improved the offensive line because of it, and I think they went out and they got Devin Singletary and they drafted Tyrone Tracy and they have Eric Gray on the roster so they could do a running game by committee. But the issue with this team is, and you saw it in Hard Knocks, they were not 100% committed to Daniel Jones. That was obvious. In 3 instances in Hard Knocks, they weren't. Daniel Jones struggled in the preseason against the Texans. The Giants struggled in that joint practice against the Jets. I think I really like the Giants. I really like the Giants front seven. I like the front seven with Okereke, with Brian Burns, with Dexter Lawrence. I really like the front seven. The problem for this Giants team is going to be the offensive line is still a work in progress. The running game, losing Saquon, and most importantly, the quarterback. The quarterback did not give you a ton of confidence in that preseason game that the Giants could be a playoff team. The Giants are going to win games because of their defensive line, their front seven, and I still like Brian Daboll, the head coach, but I just don't think they win enough. I got them going 8-9 and missing the postseason, and for me, that is not enough for Daniel Jones to stay next year. That's why I think this will be Daniel Jones's last year. I hope I'm wrong, but I think this will be Daniel Jones's last year as Giants quarterback. Justin, what do you got the Giants doing?
I actually haven't finished in last at 6-11 this year. I'm not, what I've seen for Daniel Jones, I didn't like in the preseason game. And he's been a guy, can you really rely on to be and play 17 games this year? I think that's a question mark as well. The running game really struggled last year, or with Barkley. Now gone. I know they replaced it with with Singletary and Eric Gray. But the offensive line should be better. They got Malik Neighbors, who I do like, and maybe Jalen Hyatt could take advantage of that. Of Neighbors kind of being the one. Hyatt can improve his numbers. I do like the Giants up front defensively with Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. They should be able to get after the quarterback. I worry about the secondary though. I don't think that's great. Now, maybe the Giants, if they could take advantage of playing the NFC South this year, maybe they could pick off a couple of those teams. That's not a strong division, and maybe they could find themselves and get to 8 or 9 wins, and could be in the hunt. But I think I know you guys have beaten up on Washington the last couple of years. Washington, I do think they've improved themselves, so I think that might be a little hard to come by. Why I'm kind of lower on the Giants is I just don't believe in Daniel Jones right now. And I said it last week. He hasn't thrown 2 touchdown passes in a game since 2019. Like that's, I need to see it from him for me to fully believe this team could be in the hunt for a wildcard spot.
I know you don't believe in Daniel Jones, but I don't think this is a 5-12 football team. I don't think with the front seven they have, this is a 5-12 team. The Giants played 3 quarterbacks last year and went 6-11. They won 6 games and arguably could have won 7 if they didn't blow that Jet game. So I just don't think this is a 5-win team. And I think it's ridiculous that people put them ahead of the Commanders with a rookie quarterback and a bad defense and a first-year coach. I know Dan Quinn got to a Super Bowl, but he's a first-year head coach. So I think it's a little ridiculous that I think this Giant, I know in a way, 5-12 might actually be better for the Giants than 8-9 because they'll be able to get in position to get their new quarterback. But you saw this team 2 years ago when Daniel Jones was healthy, and I think their roster is better than it was 2 years ago. When Daniel Jones was healthy, this team won 9 games, got to the divisional round. So I think this team, I know a lot of people don't like this team, but I do think this team, if I know it's a major if Daniel Jones stays healthy. I know it's a major if Daniel Jones stays healthy, I think this team could sneak into the playoffs with the additional Neighbors, with the addition of Brian Burns. I know a lot of people don't like Saquon being gone, but I think they improved the offensive line because of it. So I know that there's a good chance the Giants missing the playoffs, but let's be honest, 6-11. Again, I think 6-11 finishing behind the Commanders is a little ridiculous. But I think, but here's the thing: seeing where you have the Giants in last place, do you think Brian Daboll survives this season? Seeing where you have the Giants,
I think it depends on Shane because again he came in with Shane. If there's a lot of pressure on Joe Shane to have to get rid of Daboll, I think he would, especially if you are bringing a new quarterback. Then I think it's very likely. I still think Brian Daboll is a pretty good coach, but 5-12, there might be some, I could see Giants fans wanting to move on and bringing in somebody new. I think it'd be tough because, again, Shane's it seems like he's tied at the hip with Daboll. But if it comes from John Mara, like me, if he wants to move, maybe he's got to make it. But I do like Daboll. I think too with having to play the AFC North is going to be tough too, and they'll even out with the NFC South. Again, maybe the team can find a way to maybe Daboll. But even 2 years ago, they won a lot of close games and a soft schedule. So that's the other thing, But I like Daboll. We'll see, but I think 5-12, he could be in some trouble.
Oh, I definitely. I think if there's one, if there's to say who's the most safe, I think is Shane, because even if they go 5-12, I think it's another opportunity with a new quarterback and even a new coach. Daniel Jones, if they're not in the playoffs or they don't have a winning record, he's gone. And Daboll, I think he's got to be around. They got to be playing meaningful football, or his job could definitely be in jeopardy. Meaningful football in December, or his job could be in jeopardy.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be because I know last year, obviously with the injuries, didn't go their way. But yeah, if this is a team that's out of it again by November, especially if the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, everything hits on them and they're battling for a playoff spot, and it looks like they could maybe win the AFC East, then yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on the Giants that having to go in a different direction. And do you have Daboll? If you keep Daboll next year and this team does finish 5-12, something like that, and next year with the rookie quarterback to go 3-14. Is it really fair to fire Daboll next year and your second-year quarterback's got another new head coach, probably a brand new offensive system? It's probably not unfair to him either. So for that future rookie quarterback, so I think it's tough. But yeah, I definitely think this Giants team's got to be playing some meaningful football for Daboll to feel comfortable about his job next year.
Absolutely. So we'll see what happens with the Giants, but we'll move on to the Commanders. And I have the Commanders finishing in the basement at 5-12. I know there's people think they're a 7 7, 8 win team, which is absolutely ridiculous. This defense was one of the worst in football, and all they really picked up was Bobby Wagner. And let me tell you, I know Bobby Wagner is really good against the run, but he doesn't cover the way he used to. The defense is still one of the worst in football. I know they got Dan Quinn. Everybody say, "Oh, Dan Quinn's defense and all this stuff." The reason he succeeded in Dallas, and I like Dan Quinn, but the reason he succeeded so quickly in Dallas is they had Micah Parsons, who was the defensive rookie of the year, and they had Trayvon Diggs, who emerged as a really, really good corner that year. So I think this Washington team, I think Jaden Daniels will be exciting. You know they're rebuilding. The fact they traded Jahan Dotson inside the division. So lack of depth at receiver scares me. The offensive line, I don't love the offensive line. I'm not even a huge fan of the running game. I think Eckler's better in the pass game than he is in the run game. Defensively, I think I like the two tackles, Payne and Allen. I mean, I like Wagner, but it'll be improved a little bit, but not enough. And still, and I know Jaden Daniels getting a lot of hype. He's getting so much hype here. Well, it's not like Mike. It's not like the RG. I don't think it's like the RG3 year with Mike, because Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan were coaching him. Cliff Kingsbury is coaching Jaden Daniels. He's a good OC. I'll give him that, but he's not one of those two guys. He's not Kyle Shanahan or Mike Shanahan. So I got the Commanders finishing 5-12 and finish it in the basement of the NFC East. Justin, what do you got the Commanders doing this year?
For me, I got the Commanders finishing third at 7-10. I think with Jaden Daniels, I like the Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury kind of additions right there with the offensive coordinator. I think I like the way Daniels played so far. Yeah, the Dotson trade was an interesting one to trade him to Philly. Look, and this was a Commanders team that started 4-5 last year, and they lost 8 straight, and things kind of fell apart for this team last year. So they got off to a nice start. Look, yeah, you mentioned the defense. They gave up 39 pass touchdowns last year, was the third most, the third most in the history of NFL season. So that's not great. And I do have a stat here for the defensive minded kind of head coaches who have been retreads. It's not good. Like, look at Todd Bowles with Tampa Bay. He went 17-17. Dennis Allen again with the Saints.
Dennis Allen, disaster. Bowles has been okay. Allen's been a disaster.
Yeah, he's been bad. Lovie Smith with the Texans. He's fired after going 1 year at 3-13-1. Ron Rivera, Rex Ryan with the Bills was 15-16. John Fox was fired with the Bears. He went 14-34 there. Jack Del Rio. It keeps going on. There's a couple more Jeff Fishers on that list as well. So the retreads defensively with Dan Quinn are not great. But I do think this defense is going to be improved a little bit. And I do think with Jaden Daniels, this offense should be fun. Yes, the depth of wide receivers isn't concerned, but I do think the Commanders should be a little bit better. Playing, they got like a 4th place schedule, so I think that could help them out a little bit as well. So I think this team could win 7 games this year.
Yeah, I could see it. No. I don't see him winning 7. I think it's a 5-6 win team. I just think so. I mean, yeah, Jaden Daniels, yes, I think the future is there with the Commanders, but defensively, I don't think they're good enough. And Daniels is a rookie. Jaden Daniels is a rookie. So he's gonna go through his struggles. Most rookie quarterbacks do. So I think the future is there with Jaden Daniels, but I just don't think the roster is there. That's why I have them finishing in last place in the NFC East. Now, shifting to the NFC North, we will start with the defending NFC North champion Detroit Lions, and I got them winning the division again. I think that this Lions team is they got a really good roster now. They got a good quarterback in Jared Goff, good running game, and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. You got Sam Laporta, one of the top tight ends in football. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the top receivers in football, and he got paid like it. Then on the defensive side of the ball, yes, that's where they might struggle, but really good against the run. You got Akeem McNeil, one of the most underrated players. You obviously have Aiden Hutchinson on that defensive line, who's going to be, I think, going to become one of the best edge rushers in the game. At line, they're pretty good at linebacker with Alex Anzalone, and I think they improved in the secondary. I like their first round pick of Terrion Arnold. I think they improved in the secondary. I got the Lions winning the division, finishing 13-4. They were this close to the Super Bowl last year, and I'll give you my prediction later on. But I think this Lions team is definitely going to be in Super Bowl contention this year. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have done a great job turning this team around. I got them repeating in the NFC North, going 13-4. Justin, what do you got the Lions doing this year?
Yeah, I get the Lions going 12-5, and I think they should win this division as well. Again, it helps them too. They got 14 games in the dome this year, so I think they're going to put up some monster numbers, in those games. And they were right there last year. They blew a 17-point lead in the NFC Championship game against the Niners. And I think off this year too could be like a dark horse to win MVP, especially with all those games inside the dome. And I think they went about it the same way San Francisco did when they started that rebuild as well. Is they built it up front at the offensive defensive line. They got Penny Sewell, Taylor Decker. You mentioned they got Aiden Hutchinson on defensive line, as an edge rusher. So I really think, the Lions front office did an unbelievable job of really building it up front. Dan Campbell's done a pretty good job as well as a head coach, really turned this thing around. St. Brown, they paid Sam Laporta. He really emerged at the end of last year as a rookie. He should take the next step up this year. I like DJ Reader coming in to help that pass rush at the nose guard spot. And then, Jack Campbell too. Could he be a little bit better here in his second year? And you mentioned too, Terry Arnold coming in. The first round pick out of Toledo to help that secondary out. And this team should be 4-0 heading. I don't like the early bye, but they should be 4-0 heading into their bye going to Dallas and Minnesota the next 2 weeks. So for Detroit, I think they should win this division.
Oh, yes, I think they should. And how did I not mention that offensive line? Because I think it's the best in football.
Yes.
Penei Sewell, Taylor Deckard, Frank Ragnow. You got Kevin Zeitler, a veteran, on that line. It's the best offensive line in football. And you said it. They built it. They built it just like San Francisco, the team they lost in the NFC Championship, with their two lines. The defensive line with the drafting Aiden Hutchinson in 2022 with their number two overall pick, and then their first one in 2021. Getting Penei Sewell, and obviously Jared Goff has really helped this team too. They were able in that Stafford trade to get a competent quarterback in Jared Goff, and he has definitely proven to be a really good quarterback for this team. And that's a big reason why I got them repeating in the NFC North. Now finishing in second, I have the team that got hot at the end of the year last year, and that's the Green Bay Packers. And that's another team I'm really high on. I got them finishing 12-5 in first place. Jordan Love, one of the probably the best quarterback in football in the second half of the season last year. He was red hot. And they don't have that number one. The one thing, and you heard LaFleur, a couple weeks ago say, I don't like the term number one receiver. They don't have that number one, but they have a lot of depth with Romeo Doubs, with Christian Dobson, with Dobbs and with Dotson and with Dontavian Wicks. A lot of depth at that receiver position, which is, you saw it in that playoff game against Dallas. I mean, Jordan Love was red hot, and those receivers were red hot too. So you saw that the depth at the receiver position. And then on defense, I really like this pass defense. Now, Jari Alexander staying healthy is a question. He's had a lot of trouble staying healthy, but I like Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, and Kenny Clark getting pressure on the quarterback. The issue is the run defense. The run defense is not good, but I think this defense is definitely good enough for them to be. And they got a new defensive coordinator, the guy from BC. He came over to be the DC. Joe Barry is out. So I think this defense is good enough for this team to compete in the NFC. I think they're one of the top 3 teams in the NFC, and I think they get the number 5 seed in the first wild card in the NFC. And I got them finishing 12-5 and getting one of those wild cards in the NFC. Justin, what do you got the Packers doing this year?
Yeah, I get the Packers getting a wild card spot, finish second in this division, going 11-6. Last year was it reflecting the pain for the second half of the year for Jordan Love, because he was abysmal in that first half. Obviously, the numbers second half were great. Like they had that moment in Monday Night Football. They lost the Giants, a game that you should have won. I do like bringing in Jeff Hafley, the BC guy. He's probably getting fired at the end of this year. Wanted to jump. And then I like bringing in Josh Jacobs at the running back. He's more reliable. He's a little bit younger than Aaron Jones, so that should help him with the running game this year. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, they combined for like 17 sacks last year. So, I think for this Packers team, I do like it. You mentioned too, they got a lot of depth. I think it hurts a little bit that you don't have that true one that like on third down when you need to pick it up, like you don't have that go-to guy. I think that does hurt a little bit. But they do have a lot of depth, and maybe one of those guys can emerge as that threat for him this year. And something too, I saw this. So Green Bay at home, up until last year, they're 163, 57-2 at home. That's since 1992. Last year they're 5-3. So usually they got a great home field advantage. They're a little bit better this year at home too. I think that's going to help them out. Maybe win that division. But I think they do finish second, a game or two behind Detroit. But this is a team that should be back in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Without question, they should be back in the playoffs. Now, moving on to who I got finishing in third in the division, and that is the Chicago Bears. I know they got a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams, but look at the team he's been surrounded with as a rookie. They went out and they drafted Romo Dunze. They traded for Keenan Allen. They have a pretty good running back in DeAndre Swift. Offensive line is average, but should be improved this year. You got a defense that when Montez Sweat came to that team, their defense definitely improved last year. Good middle linebacker in TJ Edwards. Good corner in Jalen Johnson. The head coach, I'm a little bit iffy on. And if they don't make the playoffs, he's going to get fired. But I think it's an important year for them to make the playoffs because you don't want to break up Shane Waldron and Caleb Williams. And I think Caleb Williams will have a very good rookie year. I think he'll have he doesn't have to be. The thing is, he doesn't have to be as good as CJ Stroud for them to make the playoffs. He just has to be decent. It's because seeing the weapons that are around him. So I think he'll have a good rookie year. But he will have some hiccups. That's why I don't think they're, on the level of, the 49ers, the Lions, the Packers, or even the Eagles. That's why I think they're on that second tier in the NFC because they'll have some hiccups. Their defense, was good. It was good when Sweat came back, but let's not forget they blew some double-digit lead. They blew 3 double-digit leads in the fourth quarter last year. I mean, part of that had to do with Justin Fields doing nothing in the fourth quarter, but they blew some double-digit leads. So this is a team I got finishing 9-8, finishing in third, and getting that final wild card spot in the NFC. Justin, what do you got the Bears doing this year?
I got them 8-9. I think they're still a year away. You mentioned I'm not big on Matt Eberflus yet. I still got my question marks about him. They brought in DeAndre Sweat, the running back spot. He's been pretty good as well. Keenan Allen, he's been banged up a lot. I don't trust him to be on the field. I know they just paid DJ Moore. Darnell Wright, their offensive lineman from last year that they picked. Could he take this step up this year? And for Caleb Williams, I don't know if there's ever been so much pressure on a number one pick at a quarterback spot to come in and get a team to playoffs kind of right away. And and for Caleb too, last year, under Lincoln Riley, it's more of a playground offense. He took a lot of risk last year and I think part of it was because his defense was so bad and he knew he had to put up 45 game or they're probably going to lose because his defense is not going to help him out. But that Notre Dame game, he was awful. And if, defensive coordinators go and watch that film and, okay, this is how we're going to play exactly like Notre Dame did, maybe he struggles a little bit till he finds a way to make adjustments. But I think Caleb Williams is going to be a really talented quarterback. But I think there's a lot of pressure on this team right away. I think maybe early on they take some lumps and they play better towards the second half. But I think this team's still a year away from being a playoff team.
Yeah, I think they're a playoff team this year, and I think they're a year away from being a Super Bowl contender. And you brought up the pressure on Caleb Williams. There's so much pressure because usually if you're a rookie quarterback and you've seen with your Patriots, you go to a terrible team. The Bears were 7-10 last year, and the reason they got the number one pick is because they traded with Carolina. Carolina traded with them to get the number one pick the year where they were going to have the number one pick. So yeah, usually you're going to a terrible team. Justin Fields is not going to a terrible team at all. He's going to a roster that's pretty much in the middle of the league. He's going to a roster that's decent. So that's why there was a lot of pressure on him to succeed. But ultimately, there's a ton of pressure on Matt Eberflus because if he doesn't play up to standard, or if this team doesn't have a winning record, I think this is it for Eberflus because he's had 2 straight losing seasons, and it's going to be very, very, very hard for him to survive a 3rd straight losing season. But we'll move on to the team I got finishing in last in the NFC North. This might be the best last place team in the league, but that is the Minnesota Vikings. I like a lot of things on this team. Yes, despite what Tua said about Brian Flores as a head coach, Brian Flores is a good defensive coordinator. He had a really good year with the Vikings as a defensive coordinator last year. They drafted Dallas Turner. They added Blake Cashman, who had a very underrated season for the Texans last year. He was one of the most underrated linebackers in the league. They still got Harrison Smith and Cameron Bynum. They added Stephon Gilmore. I like this defense. The issue with this team is 2 things, because I do like the skill guys too. I like Justin Jefferson, no question, best receiver in the league. Jordan Addison, pretty good. Offensive line, Christian Darrisaw has turned into being a really, really good left tackle. But the issue with this team is, number one, I won't get to the bigger issue. I'll get to the bigger issue second. Number one, Hawkinson's going to be on the PUP list to start the year. But number 2, the quarterback position. J.J. McCarthy out for the year, and Sam Darnold takes over. And let me tell you, I was a guy in 2018 who wanted Sam Darnold to be the Giants' starting quarterback. But he was not good with the Jets. He was not good with the Panthers. This is like Baker Mayfield last year. This is his last shot. The big question is, does he take advantage of it and get a contract? It would be with another team for him, not with the same team, because the Vikings are committed to J.J. McCarthy. Does he get a contract, or is this it for him? This is it for Sam. So this is a make or break year for Sam. Back, but he's but for what I think, Sam Darnold, He's going to struggle. I think still, even with Ken O'Connell, I think the numbers might be pretty good, but I think he's still going to turnover like he's been doing throughout his career. I don't think you can coach the turnovers out of Sam Darnold anymore. So that's why I got the Vikings finishing 7-10 in last place in the NFC North. Justin, what do you got the Vikings doing this year?
Yeah, I get the Vikings as well. Same record as you, 7-10, finishing in last. Yeah, they have some of the best weapons across the league. Especially the wide receivers position and at tight end with Hockenson. But yeah, the quarterback is a question mark with Sam Darnold now. Instead of JJ McCarthy, who's going to be a rookie anyways. But Darnold does. You mentioned it. He's got one shot left in the league to really kind of show his potential and try to get maybe another opportunity to start with another franchise next year. So it's a big year for him. Kind of I think some pretty good quarterbacks. We'll see if he can kind of fix Sam Darnold here. Last year the Vikings too, defensively they only had two guys that had registered more than like 3 sacks, and that was Danielle Hunter and DJ Woodman, and they both left in free agency. So who kind of steps up in that in that spot this year for him? And last year too, they were 2-6 at home. And before that, since 2012, they were 64-35. So for them, they got to play a lot better at home. And if they don't win week 1, they might wait a while to get their first. Because after that, the Niners, the Texans, Packers, Jets, Lions, Rams, Colts, and Jaguars. So they don't get to the Giants week 1. They could be waiting a while to get that first win. It's a tough schedule after week 1. So for them, could they kind of get that first win out of the way and maybe steal 1 or 2 during that kind of stretch there? But I think the Vikings, unfortunately, without like JJ McCarthy this year, I think next year with JJ, they could get back in the playoffs. This year, I think they're like a 7-10 team.
Yeah. You're right about that. You hit the nail on the head. They got to win opening day, or it's probably going to be a long year for them. Moving on to the NFC South, and the team I got winning the division is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I'm not totally confident about this because I hated what they did in the first round drafting Michael Penix. And that's why I don't have the Falcons. A lot of people think they're a 10-11 win team. I don't have the Falcons as a 10-11 win team because I just hated what they did in the draft. And if they go start, I don't think this team will make the playoffs. So that's going to cause dissension in the locker room with Kirk. I think this locker room could fall apart during the season. And I don't love the head coach Raheem Morris, but I just think they clearly the best quarterback in the division, and that's why I got them winning the division. And they got some good skill guys. I mean, Drake London's good. Kyle Pitts hasn't played up to potential, but I think he might have a bounce back year, even knowing that this is a contract year, and knowing that Kirk Cousins is clearly the best quarterback he's had since his rookie year, and Matt Ryan. I think Bijan Robinson good year. I think defensively this team is decent. I think they traded for that edge rusher and Matt Judon. They got a good secondary with AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates, and they added Justin Simmons. So I think this team is a good roster. I just don't trust the head coach or the starting quarterback in the postseason. I mean, I like Kirk Cousins is decent, but the bigger the game, the worse Cousins plays. We all know that. So I think this team wins their division, but I'm not putting them on the top tier in the NFC with the Niners, with the Lions, with the Packers, and with the Eagles. I'm just not doing that. But I do have them winning this division. Justin, what do you got the Falcons doing this year?
Yeah, I got them winning the division as well, 11-6 here. I just think their schedule is so easy, especially after like week 10, 11. Like they end with the Saints, Broncos, Chargers, Vikings, Raiders, Giants, Commanders, Panthers. Like, yeah, I don't love the coach. Like, could you imagine if Robert Kraft did not squander Bill's chances of being Atlanta? Like, I would probably have them as Super Bowl contender.
I still don't know. I don't know with Kirk. All right, they have Bill, but they have Bill. I get it. And I can pull the whole, what has Bill done without Tom? But still, they'd have Bill. All right, I agree. Just because of Bill, I would agree.
Yeah, they would like it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities that they could win that they could get the 1 seed because of how easy schedule there is. I don't think they will, but I wouldn't be shocked if they're sitting there as a 1 seed. Like they're the Los Angeles Chargers of the NFC. Their moves are just always head scratching. They'll lose games that they shouldn't. All that. Again, bringing Raheem Morris is definitely a little bit of an upgrade over Arthur Smith. It's still not great, but their offense should be better. Michael Penix, that was a question mark. But if Cousins is healthy, with the offensive weapons they have, their offense shouldn't be as just putrid to watch as it has been with Ritter, with all the talent that they've had. So I think for this Atlanta team with the division, with Judon coming in to help out that pass rush, because they were one of the worst last year, just at rate wise, getting the quarterback. So I think the Atlanta team should be 11-6, and mostly just because of how bad their division is and how soft the schedule is.
Yeah, I think so. I think they win and in the division. Now they could win more games. Here's the thing. I didn't want to be totally off on them because it could go one or two ways for the team. They could either be really good and go like 12-5, or they could be it could fall apart. That locker room could fall apart and they can go 5-12. So I just picked a record right in the middle, having them win the division, go 9-8. But yeah, I could see them being better, but I don't see this team winning more than one playoff game. And that's because of the quarterback they have and his struggles in the postseason. But we will move on to the team I got finishing in second, and that is the Buccaneers. I got the Bucs finishing in second, and I know a lot of people think they could win the division for the fourth year in a row. The issue with the Bucs for me is three things. Number one, I'll go from least important to most important. I don't think they have a great pass rush. I don't trust their pass rush or their pass defense. I like their run defense. I don't trust their pass defense. Number two, Todd Bowles is very inconsistent as a head coach. I don't trust Todd Bowles. And number three, Baker Mayfield had a really good year last year, but I can't trust him to have the year he had last year. I can't. He's just been so up and down in his career. I can't trust him to make the playoffs 2 years in a row. He's had ups in his career, but he's definitely had downs. I just can't trust him to make the playoffs 2 years in a row. And that's why I got the Bucs finishing 8-9, finishing in second, and missing the playoffs for the first time since 2019.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got him missing as well. Got him 8-9. He started out 4-7 last year and won 5 of the final 6 there, and we're able to get hot, win the division, go 9-8. But yeah, this team hasn't been able to run the football the last couple of years. Rashad White's, their running back. He's much better as a pass catcher than he is as a runner. In the backfield. So I think for them, with the young offensive line, if they take a step forward, Baker Mayfield had a pretty nice year. Antonio Winfield, they just paid him, and
Antoine Winfield,
he's
one of the best safeties in the game.
Winfield, yeah, he absolutely is, and he had an unbelievable year again for the team. So in the back end, I think Tampa's defense should be decent. They could be a little bit better stopping the run in this division. I wouldn't be shocked, as you mentioned with Atlanta, if this team does fall. If Atlanta falls apart, I wouldn't be shocked at them winning division again. But I think Tampa Bay finished second in this division.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think they both have them finishing 8-9 and missing the playoffs. Now moving on to the team I got finishing in third, and that's the Saints. And I just think this team is just going nowhere. I know they finished 9-8 last year, but here's the issue: a lot of their best defensive players, they're in their 30s now. Outside of Marshawn Lattimore, has trouble staying healthy. They're all in their 30s. Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, who's still on top of his game. Demario Davis is really good. Tyrann Mathieu. A lot of those players are in their 30s. The quarterback position, I think Derek Carr's best days are behind him. I think they're pretty good. Alvin Kamara, he's getting old too. I like Chris Olave. I think he's a really good receiver. But the biggest issue with this team, two things. Their offensive line is absolutely terrible. I think it's going to be the worst in football this year. And Dennis Allen is a garbage head coach. And I think this team finishes 6-11. And I think Dennis Allen gets fired at the end of the season. Justin, what do you got the Saints doing this year?
Yeah, I got the Saints 6-11 as well. I'm with you, Carr, and especially if the offensive line is as bad as advertised. He's in his 30s. He can escape a little bit, but he's he's a guy that will get the ball quickly. He likes to use his check down, so maybe that will help him a bit. But yeah, Chris Olave, Rashad Sheed, they got two big guys. Those two guys are capable of making big plays. Can they get a little more out of Keandre Miller this year? Because Kamara's like 29, and he's missed a lot of games the last couple of years. So for them, and yeah, the defense is aging. They bring in Chase Young, but he's so hit or miss. He'll have some games where he looks like he'll live up to the guy from Ohio State, and in other games he just doesn't show up. So, Lattimore went down last year. They got Kool-Aid McCanister from Alabama in the second round. So, I think the same team as well, 6-11, is where I see them finishing third.
Yeah, I agree there. I got the Saints finishing at 6-11 as well. But we will go to the team I got finishing in the basement, and that is the Carolina Panthers. I got them finishing 3-14. And it's just there's a couple years. Last year there were two teams I completely missed the boat on. That was the Rams and that was the Colts. I think this could be one of those teams I missed the boat on because I do like the Dave Canales, Bryce Young connection. I do like the guy who they drafted. I like Xavier Legette. I like Jonathan Brooks. I like some of the young players they drafted. The issue to me, though, is they got rid of they traded their best defensive player in Brian Burns. So I think the defense is going to take a step back. I know J.C. Horn's still pretty good, but I think the defense is going to take and I think that a better year, but the problem is the defense won't be as good. So I think they'll lose some high scoring. I think they might lose some high scoring games. I just think this roster is good enough for it to be for a playoff spot. They might win more than 3 games, who knows? But I think I got this team right now. I still got them as one of the worst teams in football. I got them finishing 3-14. Justin, what do you got the Panthers doing this year?
I get a 5-12. I think with the NFC South, they should be able to pick off a couple games of division, which I think will help them. Dave Canales, he's done a really nice job with Geno 2 years ago in Seattle, last year with Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay. Maybe he can get that out of Bryce Young because we saw he did not live up to the number 1 overall pick last year. Dave Temper being the owner, he's so lucky Jerry Jones is still around, or he'd be by far the worst owner in the sport. He was the one that wanted Bryce Young over CJ Stroud, and he fired everybody that wanted that and that wanted CJ Stroud. But I like some of the young talents you mentioned, Jonathan Brooks, Xavier Legette coming in for South Carolina. Their offensive line could be a little bit better. I think that will help, but Jadeveon Clowney they brought in, he's been another guy just been very inconsistent throughout his entire career. But I think they do get the 5 wins just because of just the division. They're able to pick off like a Tampa Bay or New Orleans, and they find a couple wins that way.
Yeah, we'll see there. I mean, it's going to be an interesting year to see Dave Canales and Bryce Young together. I think it'll eventually be a good combination, but I think they're going to struggle this season. Now, moving on to the NFC West, coming in first place, pretty obvious. It's the defending NFC champion, San Francisco 49ers. I mean, listen, I think Brock Purdy is, I know a lot of people say he's a game manager. That's nonsense. I think he's close to one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. I know you got the Ayuk situation, the Trent Williams situation. Trent Williams, they're going to figure that out. I think they're going to figure out the Trent Williams situation. They got one of the best. They got one of the best. They're still one of the best defenses in football with Joey Bosa, with Fred Warner, with Tre'Davious Ward, with Javon Hargrave. One of the best defenses in the NFL. This is still one of the best rosters in football, even if Brady Ayuk isn't on this team, because you got Kittle and you got Debo, and I think they're going to work it out with Trent Williams by opening day. But here's the thing I think is going to hold the 49ers back. In the last 30 years, there's only been one team that has lost the Super Bowl that has returned to the Super Bowl. That's the 2018 Patriots. The Super Bowl hangover is real. And I know it's not fair to judge the 2020 team to this team for the 49ers, but the last time the Niners lost the Super Bowl, they ended up going 6-10. I do think there's a little bit of a slippage this year. I do have them winning the division, but I do have them losing. I do have them losing the playoffs. I don't have them returning to the Super Bowl, but I don't have them returning to the Super Bowl, but I do have them winning this division, and I got them winning it at 13-4. Justin, what do you got the Niners this year?
Yeah, for me, I got 12-5 winning this division this year. They were up 10 in the Super Bowl game. They couldn't hold on. Their roster's still pretty strong. Ricky Parcell, I think, I know he's been banged up this offseason, or during camp, and, he's good there for the wide receiver depth. If they can't, figure it out with Ayuk, if he does end up getting traded, I think he'll step into that role. Yeah, they still got George Kittle's one of the better tight ends. You mentioned their defense is still really strong. It should be one of the better units still in the league. They might struggle a little bit at the cornerback spot, to cover at times. But they should be right there again, having a chance to get to the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy, he did struggle a little bit, in that Ravens game against that really good defense. So, and that, may have cost them, but I think for the Niners team, they should still be really strong. They're off the line, Trent Williams, so they'll figure it out. But I think this Niners team still gonna, still finish in first place in that division.
Yeah, I definitely see the Niners finishing in first. Now, finishing in second, I'm going to go with Sean McVay's team and the Rams. Now, I'm not as confident in the Rams as other people are. I think there's issues with the Rams. I think the quarterback is getting old. Yes, he played well, better than he did the previous season, but I think a big reason for that was Kyron Williams. If you look at the games where Kyron Williams wasn't good at, Kyron Williams didn't run the ball well, and Stafford didn't play well in. So I think with the age of the quarterback, I think the defense is going to be worse because they lost one of the best defensive players in the league, and Aaron Donald, and Ernest Jones just got traded to the Titans. So I think the defense is average at best. I think the offense, they got good skill guys with Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp, but I question the quarterback's age. Offensive line is decent, but I think this team is around the postseason, but I have them missing it. I know they got some good young talent on defense, but I just don't think they're good enough defensively, and I don't know if the quarterback is still good enough anymore. I know people like Stafford. I I don't like Stafford as much as other people do right now. That's why I got the Rams missing the playoffs. Hard to doubt Sean McVay. I just don't think the roster is good enough.
Yeah, I get the Rams 10-7. The way this team finished at 7-1 down the stretch, they played well. They almost beat Detroit. All Sean McVay's done is win football games, and I think they're gonna be able to do that again. Puka Nacua stepped up from last year. Hopefully you got Cooper Kupp that's getting a little bit older, but hopefully he can stay out in the field. If Stafford can stay healthy. Jared Verse, who I really like. He's really gifted edge rusher out of Florida State. Because LA because they definitely missed Von Miller last year, and hopefully Verse could kind of bring that addition to him that's going to help him out a little bit to get some pass rush. And we'll see how they filling in for Aaron Donald now. They brought in 2 new defensive tackles to kind of try to fill his role. I don't think it's even be great, but I do think they have potential to win a lot of shootouts, and I think that's why they will get to 10-7 this year.
Go to the team that I got finishing in third, and that is the Seahawks. And I got them taking a step back after Pete Carroll leaves. Mike McDonald takes over. I got them taking a step baback. I got them going 7-10. They just lost Nwosu for a good amount of time, so I don't love I know they got Leonard Williams, and they drafted Byron Murphy on the defensive line, but I don't love their defensive line right now. They lost Bobby Wagner. I like their secondary. I love Devin Witherspoon. I think is a stud. Julian Love has really improved. I like Tariq Woolen, so I like their secondary. But the issues with this team, their defense to me, overall average. Their offensive line is an issue. And Geno Smith, I think, is just an average quarterback at best. I just think he's an average quarterback right now. I know he had a really good first year in Seattle, not as good last year. I don't think he has as good of a year this year. I do like the skill guys with Walker, Metcalf, and Lockett, but I just don't think that's enough. I got Seattle missing the playoffs and finishing 7-10. Justin, what do you got the Seahawks doing this year?
Yeah, it's Seattle getting 9-8. I think they will miss on the playoffs, but I really do like the Mike McDonald hire. Coming in from Baltimore, he was with Harbaugh too at Michigan, so I do really like this hire. I think he's going to improve that defense. Geno Smith, he's an average quarterback, but he's got one of the best trios of wide receivers in the league, which I think will help. Hopefully, Smith and Jigba could kind of be an emerging guy, could take another step. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. I do think their offensive line's a little bit better, with Lake Thomas coming in and third round pick out of UConn, Christian Haynes. I think their offensive line should be a bit better this year. And I love Byron Murphy. I think the spot that they got him at was a steal. I thought he was a guy that should have been like a top 10 pick. And, he's going to help that interior run defenses. They were they ranked 31st last year in EPA last year against the run. So they were awful in that category. And so I think they're going to be able to help out that. And you mentioned, the corner, Weatherspoon's going to be unbelievable. So I do think Mike McDaniel with this team is I do think
Mike
I really
McDonald,
like to hire.
Mike McDonald. I know it's tough
Mike
to be
McDonald,
confused.
yeah.
Mike McDonald, yes.
Yeah, Mike McDonald, yeah.
We'll get to Mike McDaniel's team.
Yeah. Yeah, but very close in the name there. So I do like the Seattle team. I like to hire, and I think Seattle going 9-8 this year.
All righty. So coming in last, I got the Cardinals finishing 6-10. Listen, I think Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray are going to be fun. I think they got a good offense, but the problem is I know Jonathan Gannon's a defensive mind, but I think defensively this team's going to struggle again. They'll have some fun games, but ultimately I just don't think it's going to be enough for them to be a playoff team. I got them finishing 6-11. Justin, what do you got the Cardinals doing?
Yeah, I got them 6-11 as well. I love the offense. They're going to put up a lot of points. They're probably going to have the worst defense in the league, but they pulled upsets last year in the month of December at Philly and Pittsburgh. So, they're going to be somebody that could.
One in Philly, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they did. So those two, and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyle Murray together should be really fun to watch. So, yeah, I think this Cardinals team, their offense is really fun. Defensively, could they find a little bit more on that end of the football in the next couple of years? And I think maybe they get back to the playoffs. But, yeah, I think offense would be fun. Defensively, they're probably going to really show on that end of the side of the field.
Yeah, they're definitely going to struggle on defense. Now, moving to the AFC East. And it's close in terms of in terms of who could win this division. You got the Bills, you got the Dolphins, and the Jets with Rodgers back. It's close, but I got to go with the team I trust the most. I can't trust the Dolphins because of the way they collapsed last year. The Jets, come on now. They got one of the worst coaches in football. I know they got Rodgers, but they got one of the worst coaches in football. I got to go with the team that's won it the last 4 years. I got to go with the Bills, and I got them winning the division, finishing 11-6. I mean, I know they lost 6 starters. I know they lost Stephon Diggs. but they still got a top-tier quarterback in the league, Josh Allen. They drafted Keon Coleman. James Cook has proven to be a pretty good running back. They're offensive. I like Russo and in the room. Yes, we're going to they lost Matt Milano again. Secondary, they're average there, too, but I think defense is good enough for this team to be a Super Bowl contender with Josh Allen. I think their skill guys are good enough as well. I got this team finishing 11-6 and winning the division. Justin, what do you got the Bills doing this year?
I got an 10-7 winning this division as well this year. You know, tough kind of schedule after week one, to start. You go Miami on a short week 2, you got Jacksonville at home. Then you have three straight road games at Baltimore, Houston, and the Jets. So could be a little, they really got to play well out of the gates this year before that kind of tough road trip. And could Keon Coleman step up as the number one that they want? Dalton Connect, or Dalton Cage, thinking basketball there. But at tight end, I thought, he had a nice year as a rookie. Can he take another step forward? The defensively, the injuries, Matt Milano again, tore his bicep, like that's going to hurt on the defensive side of the football. They've had a lot of injuries there the last couple of years. Again, I think with Josh Allen there, they should still win the division. Yeah, they could, with Allen, I guess, they still are a Super Bowl contender, but they got to establish chemistry quick with some of these new weapons that they got. But I still think Buffalo somehow still finds a way to win the division.
Now moving on to the team that I got finishing in second in the division, and that is the Miami Dolphins. I just don't, after last year, I don't trust them winning. They had a 2.5 game lead with like 4 games to play last year. I don't trust them winning a division. They're going to have Chubb and OBJ on the PUP list. Now, I think this team is a playoff team. I think they still got a really good offense with Tua, with Waddle, with Hill, with A-Chain, and with Raheem Mostert. Defensively, they're decent. Javon Holland, Jalen Ramsey, Phillips, but he's coming off an injury. So here's the thing. It comes down to the coach and quarterback, and both are good. To me, they're the Cowboys of the AFC. They're good a lot. They're good in a lot of places, but they're not. They're good at coach and quarterback, but they're not great. They're not great. To me, they're the Cowboys of the AFC, and just like the Cowboys, that's why I got them finishing 10-7, and I got them finishing in second, and I got them losing the first round of the playoffs. Justin, what do you got the Dolphins doing this year?
I got Miami as well, 9-8 this year. Yeah, McDaniels, this team, they always kind of feel like they get worse. Like they don't improve kind of in the second half. They've been under 500 in the second half of the year under Mike McDaniels, and and something too on the road. McDaniels as the head coach, they're 3-12 on the road against teams that made the playoffs. That was last year. Like that was their worst record for any team in the league that had a winning record. So they got to be better on the road. That's something Miami, like they have not gone on the road somewhere and won a big football game in a while. And they do have road games under here at Cleveland, the Jets, and Green Bay. And those may be 3 weather games where Miami we've seen kind of struggle in those types of atmospheres. So I still think this is a roster that can make the playoffs. I don't totally trust this team. And I think that was a great point of Dallas. They are the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC, and I think they're 9-8 this year, finished in second place in this division.
Finishing in third, I got the Jets, and I got them missing the playoffs. I got the Jets missing the playoffs. I mean, I like the roster. I like the fact they got Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, one of the best receivers. They obviously have Rodgers, but I think Rodgers right now, coming off an Achilles, being 41, I still think he'll be good. I don't think it'll be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, or Joe Burrow good. I think he'll be a top 10 quarterback, not a top 4 or 5 quarterback. I think the problem with the offensive line is Tyron Smith gets hurt all the time. That's the issue there. Defensively, I think the defense is really good, but Hassan Reddick's holdout, I think that's a distraction. But the main reason why I have this team missing the playoffs, I think they have a terrible coach in Robert Saleh. Coaches usually don't last 3 years in a row and don't usually survive 3 straight losing seasons. The reason he survived it because Aaron Rodgers wants him. But ultimately, I got the Jets finishing 9-8, missing the playoffs. Justin, what do you got the Jets doing this year?
Yeah, I got him 8-9. Rodgers. I know that offensive line seems very improved on paper. I want to see it first. You mentioned Tyron Smith. Like you can't really rely on him. The full season. Look, you mentioned it too last week. Or a couple weeks ago, they won 7 games last year. That abysmal quarterback play, but the schedule wasn't very tough. They have one of the best defenses on paper. They had a league lead 18 fumbles lost last year, so maybe you expect some of that luck to turn, and maybe that and it turns around and it goes to Jets' favor this year. So maybe that helps them out a little bit. But yeah, I think they got a great roster. Mike Williams is a nice addition, but he's another guy that's been banged up a lot over the years. So, and a tough start too to go out to San Francisco to open the season. Then you got a short week at Tennessee. Then you got another short week for your home opener against the Patriot at home. And it helps you're playing the worst team in football that night. But that's a tough kind of three games to open up the season with. So a lot of expectations on Rodgers. And yeah, he's 41, and the last time we saw him, like I know he broke his thumb the last year in Green Bay there, but that wasn't the Aaron Rodgers that we've seen. That's the 4-time MVP, winner. So again, any quarterback plays gonna be better what they got last year, but I don't expect it to be the Aaron Rodgers that we saw in Green Bay.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be the Rodgers. I think it'll be good, but I don't think he's the Rodgers we'll be seeing in Green Bay. But you gave away the next team we'll talk about. That's the Patriots. We know what you think they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You think they're going to be terrible, and I got to agree with you. And listen, I was with them moving on from Belichick, especially as the general manager. I was ready to move. They need to make that move to get rid of Belichick. But what they hired? Elliott Wolf, a GM that was under Bill, and then Gerard Mayo, a head coach that was under a coach that was still good, but not, I don't think, as good as he once was. So I think this is a lot. This is a lot of the organization trying to cover up the fact that they actually fired Bill Belichick instead of him resigning, just promoting two people that I don't know if they really deserve those promotions, Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf. The jury's out on them. But looking at the team this year, it's going to be a rebuilding year. It's going to be seeing the fact they traded Matt Judon. I mean, their defense will be the strength of the team will be their defense. Christian Gonzalez, I'm excited for. I think Tavai is a very underrated linebacker. But with Barmore being out, I think the defensive line's a question mark. With trading for Judon, I mean, Uche puts up numbers, but without Judon, he doesn't put up the numbers. I like the secondary with Duggar and Peppers and Gonzalez on defense. I think their defense is okay, but it's definitely not a top 5 defense and even a top 10 defense. And then offensively, it's probably the worst in football. It's Kendrick Bourne being out. You look at some of the weapons. Yeah, you'll be able to see Polk, but then you got the Mario Douglas, who's okay. You really don't. The weapons on this team. KJ Osborne's terrible. He's garbage. You saw that on Sunday night. And the offensive line is not good. The running game is average. It's just this offense is just terrible. In an offensive league, I got the Patriots finishing last in 3-14. And Justin, we know where you got the Patriots finishing. You're very down on them.
Yeah, I got them 3-14 as well. And I think, I don't want to say by far, but I think like everybody else is like a level above them, and then they're completely at the bottom. Because I think even Carolina's better than them. Yeah,
I think Carolina is kind of close to them.
They have some weapons, as we mentioned.
Do. I'll give you that.
Weapons.
Unproven weapons, though. Unproven weapons.
Yeah, unproven. Again, our leading receiver last year had 600 yards and was a 6th-round pick, as a rookie. Like that, and DeMar Douglas. Like,
that's not a 5'8", 175-pound receiver.
Yeah, that's what we were leaning on last year. So, again, Bourne will probably be that when he gets back. But, yeah, look, we're right there at the Saints with having one of the worst, probably the worst offensive line. You saw the concerns at center when David Andrews was on the bench. So, if he gets hurt, can we even snap the ball? Again, with May, he'll probably start week 5-ish, around there.
Yeah, we both agreed last week. Brissett will start, and then May will start week 5. But with Brissett's injury, we'll see. He might have to start the whole year. But you can't go back.
Yeah.
If you start Drake May opening day, I think you just got to start him the whole year. So you can't go back. Once you put Drake May in, you can't go back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like the decision Mayo said is going to come tomorrow after meeting with Brissett and Drake May. So I guess we'll find out tomorrow what's going to happen. But look, they're coming off their worst year since 1992. The defense is like in this thing. I know the defense played well last year, up after that New Orleans game, where Derek Carr came up, tore him up. But Bill Belichick was coaching and fixing that defense. There's no Bill. Gerard Mayo, what Bill Belichick assistant, has done a good job as a coach. It hasn't happened.
The only one you could make maybe a little bit of a case for is Bill O'Brien, but the problem there, he got ran out of Houston because he couldn't get along with DeAndre Hopkins. But he wasn't great. He wasn't great either. He got them to the playoffs. He's the best. That's the top, because there have been disasters. Josh McDaniels we saw. I know Joe Judge, and then I think the biggest disaster was Patricia. Patricia was awful. Cornell wasn't any good. And then Flores, you just heard from Tua saying, couldn't connect with the quarterback. He was terrible. He was probably, arguably, Bill's second best. He was probably the second best Bill guy behind O'Brien, which is crazy because the quarterback couldn't stand him. So he made the mistake of not getting along with the quarterback. Good in-game coach, but couldn't go with the quarterback. Yeah, so a lot of Bill does not have a good coaching tree at all. And we'll see. The jury's out on Gerard Mayo, and the jury's out on Elliott Wolf. And the key to this year is for them not to go 1-16 and embarrass themselves.
Yeah.
If they go 1-16, could get fired. That's embarrassing yourself in this league.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely could. And, if they go like 2-15, 1-16, something like that, it's going to be an absolute abysmal. And look, and I think the one thing, because I know we both kind of got on Bill for being so conservative last year, but I think the reason he did it was because to keep that defense to keep this team in games, where maybe your defense can make a big play, you get a pick six or scoop and score. This year, on a 4th and 2 at the 50, will Gerard go for it and pin your defense in a bad spot?
Come on. Gerard ain't going for it. He's a defensive-minded coach like Bill. He's going to punt it away.
I hope so, because if he doesn't, he tries to be a little bit aggressive early, we could be down 3 scores. And my last point too is if we don't win week 2 in Seattle, I don't know. We're probably not winning a game in November. It's going to be a long year, and I think I'd be very surprised the Patriots do not have the first overall pick in the NFL draft this year.
I think they'll be close to it. I think they'll definitely have a top 3 to 5 pick. I think they will be one of the worst teams in football. Again, more to the fact that they're rebuilding. They're rebuilding a team that, as great as much good as Bill did, he definitely is the one guy he is the guy who's most responsible for the team being in the position that they are in right now. So we'll see what happens with Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo. We'll see how Gerard Mayo does in year 1. But we got to move on to the AFC North and winning the division. I got a repeat winner. This was close. I wanted to take the Bengals, but I just don't like what I'm hearing out of there in the offseason with T. Higgins wanting to be traded, with Trey Hendrickson wanting to be traded. I don't love what I'm hearing out of there. And listen, I've never been the biggest Zach Taylor fan. I just haven't. I just have not been the biggest Zach Taylor fan. I just think you clearly Tomlin and Harbaugh are close to being the best coach, but this is probably still the best, even though they've lost players, still the best roster in the division. I am going to take I know a lot of good rosters in the division. Bengals have a good roster. Browns have a good roster. Steelers have a pretty good roster. This is probably the best division in football. But I am going to take the Ravens here because in terms of coach and quarterback, it's the best combination in the division. So that's why I'm taking the Ravens to win the division again. I got them going 12-5. Lamar with Lamar and the running game with Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry, even though won't be as good as he was in Tennessee, I think it'll still be really good. Still be a really good defense, even though they lack having an edge player. They really don't have a consistent edge. Van Noy and Oweh are not consistent edges. You got Matabuke, who you paid in the offseason. I think he's pretty good. You obviously got probably outside of Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in football in Roquan Smith. And then in the secondary, you still got Merlin Humphrey and you drafted Nate Wiggins. So still pretty good defensively, still good offensively. Team was this close to getting to the Super Bowl last year. I got them winning the North again, going 5. Justin, what do you got the Ravens doing this year?
I am winning the division at 11-6 as well. I think Derrick Henry coming in does help that backfield. They've lost a lot of running backs over the year with injuries. So Derrick Henry, for the most part, has been a guy that's been healthy throughout his career, but he is aging, and we kind of know what running backs, how that goes. Mark Andrews, who was banged up a lot last year, and that really helped Isaiah Lakely to take that next step up at the tight end position. And, he looked pretty good. Zay Flowers could, at wide receiver, could he, take another step up as well this year. The offensive line's a little bit, it's not bad. The secondary, you bring it in. Nate Wiggins, drafting him's a nice upgrade. In Harbaugh, at home since 2018, they've been really good at home. So, I think this Ravens team, can they get back to the AFC Championship team and maybe beat Kansas City? Yes, but if I would, you mentioned it about the next team we were talking about. If there wasn't more question marks to that team, I'd probably have them at second. I'd probably pick them second in this division.
So you change your pick from the Ravens to the Bengals?
No, I would if there wasn't as many question marks with the Bengals right now with the stuff going on.
Gotcha. Now moving on to the Bengals, and I got them finishing in second, going 11-6. With Joe Burrow being back, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. I mean, obviously the receivers with Higgins and Jamar Chase, and then you got the defense with Trey Hendrickson. You need better years out of Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, but I think this team is still, even though their defense is shaky, I still think offensively it's a really good offense, and they got one of the best quarterbacks in the sport. Coach has always been a question for me, but then that's why with all the trade people who wanted out of there and Zach Taylor, that's why I don't have this team ahead of the Ravens. But I do have them with Joe Burrow staying healthy the whole season. If Joe Burrow stays healthy the whole season, though, I do have them finishing a second because you look at the 2 years when Burrow was last year when Burrow was healthy throughout the year. 2020 got to the Super Bowl. No, 2021 got to the Super Bowl. 2022 got to a conference championship game. If Burrow stays healthy, this will be a playoff team, and I have them as the number 5 seed, and I got them going to the playoffs. Justin, what do you got the Bengals doing this year?
Yeah, I got them. The Bengals 11-6, taking the division this year.
You got them winning it. Got them winning the division.
Yeah, healthy. The Bengals have always kind of been a slow starting team. Week 1 is New England. They should blow them out. Now, week 2 at Kansas City is going to be tough. They got the Commanders at home at Carolina, so they could be 3-1 start at the gates. And because usually this is a team when healthy, they play better towards the end of the year. They were 1-5 last year in the division. Again, some of that was with Joe Burrow being hurt, but I like bringing Geno Stone and Von Bell. On the back end of their defense, but this is a team that their defense should be a little bit better. They still got T. Higgins, who, it's been some drama off the field wise, but again, I think he could put up some big numbers and try to go get that monster contract that he wants next year. And I think this Zach Moss, Chase Brown, I kind of like those two in the backfield for this team, and hopefully they can improve their running game. I got Cincinnati win this division.
Finishing in third, I got the Browns. Finishing in third. I think the reason why I got them finishing in third and missing the playoffs, but the reason why I got them missing the playoffs is, number one, Chubb's going to be missing the first 4 games. That's going to hurt. I know Jerome Ford had a pretty good year last year, but I think Chubb missing those games is going to hurt. And then number 2, you don't know what you're going to get out of Deshaun Watson. You don't know what you're going to get. You're going to get the Deshaun Watson through the first 4 years in his career in Houston, or are you going to get the Deshaun Watson from his last 2 years in Cleveland? What are you going to get? I don't know what you're going to get. So that's why I just can't say this is a playoff team. But if Deshaun Watson somehow becomes the guy again he was in Houston, this is a sleeper Super Bowl team because this roster is really good. This is one of the top 5 rosters in the league. You got one of the best edge rushers in Myles Garrett. You got, of course, Amora. They got one of the best linebackers in the league, and they got one of the best linebackers in the league, one of the best corners in Denzel Ward. Their defense was really outside of that playoff game. Their defense during the regular season was one of the best in football last year. You have pretty good weapons with Amari Cooper, and you added Jerry Jeudy. I mean, this roster is really good. Why I can't have him in the playoffs though is I don't trust what you're going to get out of Deshaun Watson. It really comes down to Deshaun Watson. I just don't trust that. I don't think Watson is going to be the guy he was in Houston. I think he's going to be the guy he was in Cleveland. And I think this team misses the playoffs and finishes 9-8. Justin, what do you got the Browns doing this year?
Yeah, I got him 9-8. June, yeah. Watson hasn't lived up to that contract. I don't think he ever will. I just think he missed too much time in between from the injury down there in Houston, and then kind of the off the field stuff that he had dealt with there as well. And I don't think we're gonna see it because you saw Joe Flacco come in there and he killed it off the couch. So it just hasn't translated for whatever reason. And that defense last year was great at home, but on the road they really struggled. And if you add that playoff loss in Houston, the 2023 Browns, they had a 17-point increase of points allowed on the road than they did at home. So
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, like they gave up 40 in that game. I remember Indianapolis, Houston outclassed them in the playoff game. So that defense, it's still pretty good. It's in, they got a lot of pieces now that, are a little bit older. But I think it's a Brown team that division wasn't as tough that they could probably sneak in the playoffs. But I don't think we're ever gonna get that Deshaun Watson again. That's why I'm finishing third.
I agree there. Now, before we talk about the Steelers, we got breaking news. Mike Tomlin, and it is no surprise, Mike Tomlin has announced that Russell Wilson will be the starting quarterback. But the problem is, from what I've seen in the preseason, Russell Wilson's best days are behind him. And I think the Steelers team is gonna struggle. I think their defense is pretty good. You got Watt, obviously. You got Hayward, Highsmith. You added Patrick Queen. You got Minka, and you got Joey Porter Jr. But the problem is, offensively, this team does not have it. The offensive line, I think, is not. I know they drafted Zach Frazier. I think the offensive line is average. I think there's lack of depth at the skill positions. Even though they drafted Roman Wilson, I think there's lack of depth at the skill positions. And the biggest issue is the quarterback. I just don't think the quarterback's good enough, especially to compete in a division like this. to compete in a division like this. Again, I think they're kind of similar to the Vikings of the NFC, where they got a lot of good talent around their quarterback, but I just don't think the quarterback is good enough. At this point in his career, I don't think Russell Wilson is good enough, and that's why I got Mike Tomlin having his first losing season in his career. And it could be his last year if they have a losing season, because there have been Steeler fans that they know he's great. Mike Tomlin, he's been got fired in Philadelphia. Don't give me the fire Mike Tomlin. You easily can fire Mike Tomlin. I feel it's just. I'm going to say this. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers move on for Mike Tomlin after this year, seeing that he really hasn't developed a quarterback after Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, especially in that division, it's been tough. I got the Steelers 8-9, and the one thing for me, that schedule. I don't know what they did. I don't know what the Steelers did to the schedule makers, but after week 10, you got 6 division games, and your 2 out of division games are the Chiefs at home at Philly. Like, that's just, I just think that's the toughest, 8-game stretch I think I've seen on a team's NFL slate. If this team does not get out to a fast start, I really think the end of the season could be a lot of problems. And we've seen the Steelers team last year. Again, they lost a big game in December at home to Arizona, and they did it on Thursday night to New England. Like, Tomlin's kind of been prone to losing to teams at home that they should just dog walk and again, I think Arthur Smith coming in, he's going to want to run the football. Can they do that? He should be better than Matt Canada, their OC. But I just think with that schedule, it's just a bear. And I think Pittsburgh's kind of finished 8-9 with that offense. It's going to be great. That offensive line, I know they talked that they thought it was going to be better, but what I saw in the preseason, I'm not very high on it. And I expect the Steelers team to miss playoffs and finish last place in the division.
Moving on to the AFC South, and the winner, I got the Texans repeating in the division. I got the Texans repeating, getting Stephon Diggs. CJ Stroud, I think he becomes a top 5 quarterback this year. I think he even gets into the class of the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows, and Lamar Jackson. Now, Mahomes is on his own tier, but I think he becomes a top 5 quarterback this year. And on the defensive side of the ball, Will Anderson, I think their run defense will take a little bit of a slip because they lost Blake Cashman, but this pass defense, I think, could be really good with Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, and then Derek Stingley on the back end. I think this Texans team, they're good at the positions you need to be good at. Edge rusher, quarterback. I mean, funny thing is the Jets, after 2022, had 2 guys win offensive and defensive. The last 2 years, you've had the same team that had the offensive defensive rookie of the year. The Jets had a corner and a receiver winning those awards. That doesn't do you as good as having an edge rusher and a quarterback winning those awards. And that was the Houston Texans with Will Anderson and CJ Stroud. I really like this team. I really like this Houston team. I got them winning the division. I got them going 12-5. Justin, do you think the Texans repeat in the division this year?
I do think the Texans repeat. I got them 11-6 this year. My question is, how do they handle the expectations this year? They got 6 standalone games. They're not sneaking up on anybody like they did last year. Again, they do play in one of the weaker divisions. Joe Mixon, yeah, maybe he could help their running game improve. I do think Joe Mixon's best days are behind him, though. And I do think, later on in the year, their schedule gets tougher. Like the end of the year, they got this in the second half, they got the Lions, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens. So, this team could get up to a hot start. I think they should still win this division, though. Stroud, yeah, he's going to be up there as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. They got Tank Dell back coming off of injury. So, I do think they should win this division by 2 to 3 games.
Yeah, I think so. I completely agree with you. And we'll move on to the team we think finishes in second, and to me, that's the Jaguars. And I don't like the Jaguars going into this season. I just don't. I don't think I think they got a little bit worse. They lost Calvin Ridley. Their offensive line is shaky. Their defense. I like Hines Allen. I like Josh Allen, the edge rusher. I don't mind Trayvon Walker. I like the linebackers. I like the front 7. I don't think the secondary is good. I think Trevor Lawrence. Here's the thing. I think he's a good quarterback, but I think Houston's got a better roster. And I think right now, I don't know if they have a better head coach because Peterson won a Super Bowl, but I think they got a better roster. And right now, CJ Stroud is clearly better than him. I think Trevor Lawrence, he had a really good second year. I know he got hurt last year, but it was not a great year 3. He did not make the leap we thought he was going to make in year 3. He's still a top 15 quarterback, but he's definitely not a top 5 quarterback, and he's arguably not a top 10 quarterback. And that's why I got the Jaguars finishing 8-9 and missing the playoffs. Justin, what do you got the Jags doing this year?
I think they go 9-8 this year. I do have them missing the playoffs as well. It's disappointing, and they mentioned during the offseason, that they just didn't handle the expectations well last year. That they kind of felt the pressure of kind of with Peterson kind of wanting to take that next step last year, and it just didn't happen. So maybe now with the Texans, maybe they're able to kind of that the expectations are off, the pressure's off a little bit. They can kind of get back up there and maybe win the division. But Lawrence turnovers have been, been a problem. He's thrown a lot of interceptions, even fumbles wise. He had 21 turnovers last year, including fumbles. So, ball security, they're 26 in passing yards allowed. Last year. So the secondary's got to play better. This is a team that started 8-3 last year, and I know end of the year they got banged up, especially Lawrence did it. But like that Monday night game against Cincinnati, there was no, they lost that game in overtime. They blew that one. I think they were up double digits in that game, I want to say. So, I think it's a team that possibly could, get back there, but playing back-to-back weeks in London and then having and then you got to come back on the road. There's a lot of like road games to start out. So I think the Jaguars could be like 9-8, but miss out.
Finishing in third, I got the Colts. And a lot of people like this team. I don't like this team as much. I think they won a lot of close games last year, number one. Number two, defensively, I think this team is average to below average defensively. And number three, this is pretty much Anthony Richardson's rookie year. And I've seen in the preseason he struggled. He struggled in that game against the Broncos. And then I saw the pick six he threw last Thursday against the Bengals. I think Anthony Richardson has I like his upside. I really, really like Anthony Richardson's upside. But right now, I think he's a little raw, and I think he's going to struggle this year. He's going to make his plays this year, but I think he's going to struggle. I think he's going to have an up and down season. I think the defense has an up and down year. I think this team takes a little bit of a step back. I got the Colts finishing 7-10, finishing in third in the AFC South. Justin, what do you got the Colts doing?
I got him 8-9, and yeah, I worry about the durability of Richardson because I know he got hurt game 4, but the first 3 games he left at some point with an injury. I know he came back in the first couple, but can he last 17 games? And he was a guy that did not play a ton of games with Florida. He really only played one full season there, so he hasn't really played a lot of football over the years. Again, I'm not totally comparing him to Trey Lance, but we've seen it with Trey Lance. He did not play a ton of football in college, and we saw him struggle in the time that he did get here. I do like that upside of Anthony Richardson, but the durability is a concern. I know they got Joe Flacco behind him, but is he really going to play as well as he did last year with Cleveland? I don't think so. I think their defense is okay, but I wouldn't be shocked. I do think they got a decent roster. I wouldn't be shocked they find a way to get a wild card spot, but I just don't love it. And it's just a major question mark still around Anthony Richardson, and could he play the full 17-game season? And I'm not totally sold, even though I really do like Shane Steichen, and I really do think he's a good offensive minded guy, but I think this team does miss out on a playoff spot.
Yeah, Richardson's got to learn to slide and stop taking those hits, or he's not going to last in this league. Talented player. He's got to learn how to slide. He's got to stop taking hits. He's got to learn from what happened in his rookie year. Now, finishing in last, I got the Tennessee Titans. Now, there are teams I missed the boat on. This could be a team that I missed the boat on, because if Will Levis has a good year with some of the weapons they have, I know Hopkins is going to miss time at the beginning of the year, but if Will Levis has a good year with Ridley, with Boyd, and when Hopkins comes back, this team actually could be pretty good. But the problem, why I have this team finishing in last and why I got them finishing at 4-13 is I don't know what I'm getting at quarterback, and I think the defense is above average to average. And that's what, and I don't know what I'm getting with the head coach, because this is, it's a first-year head coach. Mike Vrabel was a really good coach in this league. He was a good coach. Yes, he had 2 down years, but the problem, but the reason for that was the quarterback play has not been good here the last couple of years. So Mike Vrabel, they're replacing Brian Callahan's replacing a really good coach in Mike Vrabel. So I got this team finishing 4-13 just to the fact that I don't know what I'm getting with the head coach. I don't know what I'm getting with the quarterback. And when those are question marks, you can't pick a team to be good. That's why I got them finishing in last at 4-13. Justin, what do you got the Titans doing this year?
Yeah, I got finishing last, going 6-11 as well. They got to replace Derrick Henry. I do like their wide receivers now. They're all older. Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, and Tyler Boyd. Like they're very good players, but they are aging. Tony Pollard, can he have a bounce back year? Joe line, it's not great. If things break their way and they kind of adapt this kind of into some, maybe they find a way to finish 8 and 9 in the division. Because again, I think they could steal a home win against Jacksonville and Indianapolis in this division. They do have a last place schedule, which does help them. try to pick off a couple wins. Like they got like the Patriots at home is a game they should get. The Vikings at home, maybe ones they could steal. So for them, I think that will help them out. But I think this Titan team's like a 6-11. And yeah, you mentioned I do think it's from Mike Vrabel to Callahan. I do think is a downgrade at the head coaching spot.
It definitely is. Now going to the AFC West, we'll start with the two-time defending Super Bowl champion, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. Better they've had. I mean, with Mahomes, with Mahomes and Kelsey, Hollywood, and a running game with Isaiah Pacheco, and you got a decent offensive line too. Good defense with Bolton, with McDuffie. I know you lost to Jarius Sneed; he went to the Titans, but you got a really good. You still have a good defense, and then Chris Jones. Don't forget about him. One of the best, probably the best defensive tackle in football. I got this team finishing 15-2 and putting themselves in great position to get back to the Super Bowl and three-peat. Justin, what do you got the Chiefs doing this year?
Yeah, I get the Chiefs. Unfortunately, go 13-4, and probably gonna win this division. Probably get the 1 seed. This year, their offense. I think getting first round pick, Xavier Worthy out of Texas is going to be huge for them. We'll see what happens to Rashid Rice with the off field stuff that dealing with. The running game with Pacheco, Clyde Edward-Helaire. They get something out of him. Yeah, you still got Travis Kelce. The only thing I kind of worry about is that late in the year they got 3 games in 11 days. I think it's the spot where it's at Cleveland, you got Houston at home, and then the short week at Pittsburgh. 3 games in 11 days a lot. Maybe they do drop 1 or 2 there, but other than that, I don't really have major concerns in this team. Again, they had a lot of drop passes last year, and I think if that goes away, with Mahomes, they should win this division by a few games.
Yeah, they're clearly the best team in this division because you got a Charger team we'll talk about who lost Keenan Allen. I know they got Jim Harbaugh back. They lost Keenan Allen and they lost and they lost to Mike Williams. You got the Raiders who are starting Gardner Minshew at quarterback, and then you got the Broncos who are starting a rookie quarterback. So yeah, I think the Chiefs are definitely clearly the best team in this division. But we will move on to the team I got finished in second. I got the Chargers finished in second, and this is surprising. I got them going to the playoffs. I like the way Jim Harbaugh has built this team. They got Justin Herbert. I know the receivers are an issue with Quentin Johnson and Lyle. They're young at receiver, but I love the Joe Alt pick. I think this offensive line will definitely be improved with Joe Alt on one end and Rashawn Slater on the other. I think this defense is decent with Boza and Mack, and you got Derwin James. So I got this team go. When you have a coach like Harbaugh and a quarterback like Herbert, I think you go to the. I know they're not a Super Bowl contender yet, but I do think when you have a coach and quarterback like you have the combination of Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, I think you're a playoff team even in year 1. That's why I got them winning 10 games to get into the playoffs. Justin, what do you got the Chargers doing this year?
I got them 8-9. I think I worry. I know they got Herbert, and I do like the offensive line. What wide receivers going to step up for this offense? You mentioned Quentin Johnson. Palmer actually played really well. Ladd McConkey, the out of Georgia, who's probably going to be more, of a slot guy, more than likely, or, he's been banged up a couple times at camp already. He's not that big, either as a wide receiver. So, and then you got Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, 2 guys who are healthy or nice running backs. But again, they're 2 guys that have been banged up in their career and have missed a lot of time. So I worry about the offense and do they have enough weapons for Justin Herbert to even get rid of, to go with the football. Greg Roman, he's been really really successful with the Lamar Jackson, Colin Kaepernicks of the world, the really mobile quarterbacks as well. I do love Harbaugh. I think he's a terrific coach. He's won wherever he wins wherever he goes, but I do think he needs 1 more year before this team's a playoff team.
All righty, finishing in third in the AFC West, I got the Raiders. I like this team defensively. I like their front 7. Max Crosby, top 5 edge rusher, no question. I like the addition of Christian Wilkins, Robert Spillane, very underrated middle linebacker. I think the secondary is Meringue's pretty good, but it's a little bit shaky. The issue with this team is the offense. And I like the receivers of Jacoby and Devontae. And I do think the offensive line's okay, but the quarterback, Minshew had a pretty good year last year, but in the games where the Colts couldn't run the ball, he really struggled. The Raiders, I think they're going to struggle to run the football, so that's why I don't think Minshew is definitely not going to have the year he had last year. And last year's with Shane Steichen. This year's with Antonio Pierce and Luke Getsy. Luke Getsy got fired in Chicago. Antonio Pierce, I love Antonio Pierce, starting middle linebacker on that giant Super Bowl, on that giant championship team in 07, but he's more of a leader of men than an offensive coach. We know that. So I think the Raiders, I think they go to finish in third, go 6-11. They'll be competitive, but I think this will be definitely a team that in April will be drafting a quarterback. Justin, what do you got the Raiders doing this year?
Yeah, I got them 7-10 as well. Yeah, I love that defense with Max Crosby, Christian Wilkinson. Like I think their front seven, their edge rushers are going to keep them in a lot of games. It's in their back end. Could they just guard enough to, be somewhat decent defensively for them? Because they're going to get after the quarterback this year. Yeah, their offense, they got a ton of weapons. They got Brock Bowers at tight end. They got Michael Mayer, too, the tight end from Notre Dame. Like, they got two really good tight ends. They got some really good wide receivers, led by Devontae Adams. Like, they can find that quarterback. I think this would be a playoff team. But, yeah, I do think running the football is going to be a little bit of an issue for them this year. The offensive line, they're still building a little bit. It should be improved. But I think they can find the right quarterback in the draft next year. I do think this is a team that could find themselves second place next year, but I do think they're a year away from that. They finished third. And they won 9 out of 10 against Denver, the last 9 to 10. So they may pick them off twice again, steal another win or two. Maybe they can find themselves 8-9 wins.
Speaking of Denver, that is the team I have finished in last place. And this is nothing against Bo Nix. I really like what I saw out of Bo Nix in the preseason. I don't think the Broncos offense will have some good games. You got Garrett Bowles at tackle. Cortland Sutton is still pretty good. But the issue with these teams, their defense is garbage. Their defense is bad. It's a bad defensive team. They lost Justin Simmons. It's not Patrick Surtain. This defense is not good at all. So I think defensive. This is not sure everything's going to struggle. But I do think Sean Payton definitely survive this year because I think Bo Nix is going to have some good games. They're not going to break up Sean Payton and Bo Nix. I like Bo Nix. I think he'll take his licks this year. I think this team will take their licks. But the key to the Broncos, I know they're going to be bad. I know they're going to be bad. But the key to them is it looks like there's hope there with Bo Nix. That's the one thing as a Broncos fan, because since Peyton Manning, you've went through so many quarterbacks. It looks like now you have hope with Bo Nix, though. Even though you'll be bad this year, your future is starting to look bright. What do you got the Broncos doing, Justin?
Yeah, I got them finishing last as well, 6-11 here. Yeah, Nix has looked pretty good in the preseason. They teamed them up too with Troy Franklin, who caught 81 catches last year at Oregon. But I believe led the country. So, to have that chemistry with him, they've looked pretty good. But yeah, you mentioned it. Outside of Patrick Surtain on defense, there's not much there. They gave up a ton of rushing yards last year. I still think, defensively, they're going to have a lot of issues this year up there. And yeah, with Bo Nix, you hope they just kind of gets better throughout the year. Sean Payton, I do think could do a pretty good job with them. For Sean Payton, I know we were all kind of 13 was a little questionable, but Sean Payton, probably really thinks that he could turn him into a future NFL franchise quarterback. So that's going to take time, obviously. And I think this team, finished in last year 6-11, and we'll struggle.
Yeah, they will struggle in year 2 with Sean Payton. So now we will do our playoff predictions, and I'll start in the NFC. I got the number 2 seeded in the wild card round. I got the number 2 seeded Lions beating the number 7 seeded Bears, the number 3 seeded Eagles beating the number 6 seeded Cowboys, and the number 5 seeded Packers beating the number 4 seeded Falcons. Now in the AFC, I got the number 2 seeded Texans beating the number 7 seeded Chargers, the number 3 seeded Ravens beating the number 6 seeded Dolphins, and then the number 5 seeded Bengals beating the number 4 seeded Bills. Justin, what do you got in the wild card round?
In the wild card for the NFC, I got 2 seeded Detroit beats the 7 seeded Seattle Seahawks, 3 seed Philly beats 6 seed Los Angeles Rams. Then I got the 5 seed Green Bay Packers beating the 4 seed Atlanta Falcons, and then over in the AFC, got 2 seed Houston Texans beating the 7 seed Jacksonville Jaguars. 3 seed Cincinnati beats the 6 seed Miami, and the 5 seed Baltimore beats 4 seeded Buffalo Bills in the wild card.
Now we got all the same 8 teams in the divisional round. And I'll go first with my divisional round, and I'll start in the NFC, and I got an upset. I got the Packers getting revenge over the 49ers. I got the Packers upsetting the 49ers in the divisional round, so I got the Packers going to the NFC Championship game, and I got the Lions beating the Eagles in the divisional round. So I got an all NFC North NFC Championship game, and over And on the in the AFC, I got the Chiefs beating the Bengals in the divisional round, and then I got the Texans getting another revenge game. I got the Texans getting revenge over the Ravens. So my conference championship is an all NFC North in the NFC with the Packers and the Lions, and then over in the AFC, I got the Chiefs and the Texans. Justin, what do you got for your divisional round?
In the divisional round, I got 1-seeded San Francisco. I haven't beaten Green Bay, the 5th seed, and then I have 3-seeded Philly being 2-seeded Detroit in the FC.
You're liking Saquon. You're liking Saquon being there.
Yeah, I like that. I do. I like the additions of the secondary. I think they're going to be much better. And then over the AFC, I got the 1-seeded Chiefs being the 5-seeded Baltimore Ravens, and then I got the 3-seeded Cincinnati Bengals being the 2-seeded Houston Texans in the AFC in the divisional round of the AFC.
So you got another Chief Bengal AFC Championship game, 3rd time in 4 years. So you got Chiefs Bengals again in the AFC Championship game. So now we'll go to our conference championship picks. I'll start. In the NFC, I got the Lions playing the Packers, and I got the Lions, who were this close to making the Super Bowl last year. I got them getting over the hump and beating the Packers to get to the Super Bowl this year. And then over in the AFC, you just can't go against Kansas City. You just can't go against Kansas City. So what I got a rematch of the opener in 2023. I got the Chiefs and the Lions in the Super Bowl. Justin, who do you got going to the Super Bowl?
For me, I got over in the FC, I got the 3-seeded Philadelphia Eagles knocking off the 1-seeded San Francisco 49ers. And then over in the AFC, I got Kansas City beating the 3-seeded Cincinnati Bengals. And as all Patriot fans now realize how everybody in the league felt with Tom Brady. We're getting our own taste now with Patrick Mahomes. So
we definitely are. We definitely are. So you got Sirianni though getting to 2 Super Bowls. You got Nick Sirianni getting 2 Super Bowls. You are high on this Eagle team. With for some reason, with Saquon Barkley, you love this Eagle team. I just can't take Sirianni to get to 2 Super Bowls.
See, the problem is, I still have question marks for Jordan Love, and I just would thank Campbell in a big spot the way that NFC Championship game went. It's more I just can't trust those two, and then it's with the Super Bowl hangover with the Niners. That's why it's mostly the Eagles. I like what they did in the offseason, but I don't know the other team that conference I fully trust yet. That's mostly why I got the Eagles.
Gotcha. Now in the Super Bowl, we got the Lions and the Chiefs. I really want to pick the Lions, but I just can't go against the Chiefs. And for the first time in NFL history, I think we're going to have a 3-peat. And I got the Chiefs beating the Lions in the Super Bowl. Justin, who do you got winning the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I got the Chiefs over the Eagles as well. And yeah, we're going to have I think we're going to see a 3-peat. I think Patrick Mahomes again, he'll amaze us and somehow they'll come back being down like 10 points again, like they usually do in the 3rd quarter in the Super Bowl, and they win 3 straight.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen, and it has a great chance of happening. But that's going to wrap it up for our NFL season preview. But we're going to be back in about 10 minutes talking about the first full week of college football. So make sure you tune in for that.
Hello, my name is Joe Aguirre. I'm the president of Clovercrest Media Group. And here at CMG, we have a wide variety of podcasts, including sports shows like Keys to the City, The Roll Call, Throwing Jabs, All 4 Downs, and Jawing About the G-Men. And great true crime shows like Sticky Meat, Crimes and Consequences, Ivy League Murders, and Bird, the unsolved murder of David Eichmann. You can find all these podcasts and so much more by visiting clovercrestmedia.com.
Alrighty, Justin, nice job, and I'll be back in about 10 minutes.
All right, sounds good.
Gotcha.
All right, talk to you then.
Gotcha.